Yesterday, the world watched as US President Donald Trump and Chinese President Xi Jinping met face-to-face for the first time in 6 years. Their meeting, held in the South Korean city of Busan, was not just another diplomatic encounter. It was a test of how far the world's two largest economies could pull back from years of escalating tariffs, technology restrictions, and mutual distrust. By the end of the summit, both leaders claimed progress. But behind the public optimism lay a complex web of compromises, rivalries, and fragile understandings that could shape global trade for years to come. The Busan summit took place on October 30th, 2025, on the sidelines of the Asia-Pacific Economic Cooperation Summit. It marked the conclusion of President Trump's rapid-fire Asia tour, during which he also secured several trade agreements with South Korea, Japan, and Southeast Asian nations. The bilateral meeting with Xi lasted nearly 2 hours, longer than most expected, and was accompanied by top officials from both sides, including US Secretary of State Marco Rubio and Chinese Foreign Minister Wang Yi. The encounter was Trump's first in-person discussion with Xi since 2019, the year trade tensions reached their peak. Back then, tariffs on Chinese goods had soared above 50%, while Beijing imposed sweeping export controls on critical minerals. Now, 6 years later, both countries appeared ready to dial down hostilities, even if only partially. The agenda included issues that had strained relations for years: fentanyl exports, soybean trade, rare earths, technology transfers, and security concerns over TikTok and artificial intelligence. At the heart of the talks was the fentanyl crisis, a deadly opioid that has devastated communities across the United States. Washington has long accused Chinese suppliers of exporting precursor chemicals used to manufacture the drug, which often ends up in illegal labs. Mexico, before reaching the US, Trump announced that tariffs imposed on Chinese imports would be reduced to an average of 47%, down from 57%, by cutting the specific tariff rate on fentanyl-related products from 20% to 10%. The decision was tied to Beijing's commitment to intensify efforts to curb the illicit fentanyl trade. US officials suggested this was a significant test of China's willingness to enforce anti-trafficking regulations, while Chinese authorities emphasized that their existing measures were already among the world's most rigorous. The markets, however, reacted cautiously. Asian and European indices fluctuated as details of the deal emerged, with China's Shanghai Composite Index slipping from a 10-year high. Analysts suggested that investors had anticipated a more sweeping rollback of tariffs than what was delivered. Another major point of contention was China's control over rare earth elements, materials vital for producing everything from electric vehicles to fighter jets. Earlier in October, Beijing had expanded export restrictions on these minerals, sparking global concern over supply security. During the Busan talks, Xi reportedly agreed to suspend those restrictions for 1 year, with the possibility of extending the reprieve in the future. The United States, meanwhile, sought to diversify its supply chain. Trump signed agreements with Japan, Malaysia, and Thailand aimed at building alternative sources of rare earths, though experts warned that developing new mines and refining infrastructure could take years. Analysts from Europe noted that the bottleneck lay not in mining but in processing capacity, an area still overwhelmingly dominated by China. The tentative truce over rare earths offered short-term relief to industries dependent on advanced technologies, but it underscored how economic interdependence continues to constrain both nations' strategic maneuvering. For American farmers, one of the most tangible outcomes of the Busan summit was China's agreement to resume large-scale purchases of US soybeans. The Chinese market, by far the largest global buyer, had been effectively closed since mid-2024 amid tariff disputes. Ahead of the summit, Beijing had already made small test purchases and Trump confirmed that full-scale imports would resume immediately. Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent detailed that China would purchase up to 12 million metric tons of soybeans between now and January, as part of a broader commitment to buy 25 million tons annually for the next 3 years. The news was met with optimism across the American Midwest, where farm bankruptcies had surged during the trade war. For the Trump administration, the announcement marked a political victory, proof that U.S. agricultural leverage could still yield concessions even after years of tariff retaliation. Beyond trade, the summit also ventured into geopolitics. Trump, who has repeatedly vowed to negotiate an end to the war in Ukraine, discussed the conflict at length with Xi. The two leaders reportedly agreed to cooperate diplomatically to pursue a possible peace framework involving both Kyiv and Moscow. While the details remain vague, this development signaled Washington's renewed interest in engaging Beijing on global security issues, particularly given China's growing alignment with Russia. The move was seen as an effort to recalibrate the balance of influence in Eurasia, where both nations have competing ambitions. However, diplomats from both sides admitted privately that turning such dialogue into real results would require trust that neither side currently possesses. Technology policy remains the sharpest edge of US-China rivalry. Despite speculation, the leaders did not finalize any changes regarding chip exports or the high-profile case of NVIDIA's cutting-edge Blackwell AI processors. Trump clarified afterward that the US would maintain its existing export restrictions, allowing only modified versions of older GPUs for the Chinese market. On TikTok, however, quiet progress appeared to have been made. Under a law passed last year, the app must divest its US operations to American ownership over national security concerns. During Trump's Asia tour, China reportedly signaled its approval for the deal. American officials said further negotiations would continue in the coming months, potentially ending a long-running dispute that has complicated digital trade between the two nations. Though largely symbolic, the willingness to cooperate on TikTok suggested that both sides recognize the need to maintain some channels of technological exchange, even amid strategic rivalry. As details of the Busan summit filtered through global media, financial markets offered a mixed verdict. Stock exchanges in New York, London, and Tokyo, already at record highs, showed little movement, indicating that investors had priced in a modest trade detente. Some analysts described the talks as more symbolic than structural, reflecting a pause rather than an end to economic hostilities. Yet, the meeting achieved what neither side had managed in years: a moment of stability. Both Trump and Xi appeared eager to project calm and control, even as deep divisions remained over technology access, export policies, and military tensions in the Indo-Pacific. For Washington, the meeting provided leverage ahead of a contentious election year. For Beijing, it offered breathing space as China's post-pandemic economy faces stagnation and capital flight. In the end, the Busan summit did not rewrite the rules of global trade, but it did reset the tone. Both leaders left the table claiming victory, yet both knew the détente was fragile. As the US prepares for a possible Trump visit to China in April 2026, the question lingers. Is this the start of a new era of pragmatic cooperation, or simply another pause before the next round of confrontation?